Good morning to all the attendees of this ERC Info Session. We are much pleased to have you all here today. This ERC Info Session is already a success in number of attendees. Many people want to know what they can learn more about the access to these very wished support actions from the European Research Council. We have a very full agenda for this morning. The whole morning we will have here with us several invitees who can tell you more about how to access to these support actions by the ERC, the European Research Council. So with no further ado, we will hand over now to the Director General of INL, Professor Lars Montelius.
Thank you very much. So, good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to INL. My name is Lars Montelius. I'm the Director General for INL, and I don't see the slide now, but can we have next slide? Okay, fine. And then we take next slide. Good. Go back one slide. So yes, thank you. So just an introduction to INL. So INL is an intergovernmental research organization. It was founded a little bit more than 10 years ago by the two ministers of Spain and Portugal in order to kickstart and develop nanotechnology and advanced materials and make a big effort in order to put a stronger European footprint from the Iberian countries. And as being an intergovernmental organization, we can have activities all over the world. And we are in a very, I would say, very rapid growth mode. So the last 5-6 years, we have been going from about 60 people to more than 400 people, now from about 40 different countries working with us. And it's really nice to have this possibility with so many different cultures at the same place, but most of all is of course the site in itself with all its excellent facilities. So we have about 50,000 square meters of territory where we have one of the most modern research infrastructures dedicated to nanotechnology and advanced materials. So besides the research activities, we are having a startup program. We're having an incubator, we're having our own commercial vehicle, the INL IP Ventures, where we can do contracted research with companies. We have activities worldwide, so we have people representing us in Scandinavia and Israel, Dubai, Hong Kong, Shanghai, Austin, Boston, and Brussels. So we're getting customers and increasing interactions. We are putting up innovation center in Suzhou in China now, in the Nana Valley of China. To make it simple, I would say the way we work, the interdisciplinarity we have between different disciplines, I will tell a little bit more about that later, but this interdisciplinarity, we are really one team, and we are all very, very much passionate about the work we do. And I think this makes the big difference. Of course, it's a center of excellence. So everyone is really high talented people working here in a very competitive environment, of course, because we are working in a European and international competitive environment. And the future is here. So let's take the next slide. So we have just coined our strategic vision for the next decade, the INL 2030 strategic vision. And as you see, our vision is to be a recognized leading global nanotechnology innovation hub. So this vision, it's easy to understand. It's not only research in itself, but it's also how to deploy the research to make it to become through the invention chain to become an innovation in society that is a new product or new service on the market. So this is really very, very much important, and our interdisciplinarity makes us possible to work with many different kind of areas and with addressing various societal dimensions. So it's not only about the research in itself, it's also about governance of the research and putting a lot of effort in various support actions together with the Commission. So we're well positioned working with them and with the governments, of course. Our mission for the next decade is to explore interfaces. And by exploring interfaces, we speak not only about the scientific interfaces between different disciplines or between different sub-disciplines, but also the interfaces between a research activity and an innovation activity, as well as the interface with different agencies, with different other research organizations, universities, with municipalities, with regions, with countries, and with different forums like WHO, etc. So if we take the next slide. So right now we have at INL working, as I said, a little bit more than 400 people. Most of the people working at INL are in the research area, so they are researcher scientists being employed in a very competitive process. So every position we have we have hundreds of applicants to every position. So it's really an excellent group of people we're having at INL now working. We have grouped our now 25 research groups into 6 different clusters. And one cluster is about future, the food for future. One cluster is about precise and personalized health tech. One cluster is about sustainable environment. One is about advanced materials and computation. And one is about smart digital nanosystems. And the 6th cluster is about clean energy. So all these clusters, they kind of are aggregating the 25 research groups, meaning that there is not one single research group that is only in one cluster. So most research groups are in 2 or 3 or 4 clusters, which means a very tight interdisciplinarity and interaction between disciplines and people and cultures. And our institutional goals for the next decade is the 4 that you see below here. It's about fostering a digital society enabled by nanotechnology, the personalization of foods and medical nanotechnologies, promote the carbon neutrality and environmental sustainability, and develop next generation computational technologies. So these are overarching kind of goals, and it is related to all the things we're having around us now, coming from the European initiatives on the Green Deal, for instance, everything about the clean energy with battery, fuel cells, windmills, etc. Going to the AI oriented activities versus having better predictive medicine and personalized health tech, the Industry 5.0, the different IoT devices and the small different sensors that we will have all over us in an immersive way, together with the 5G computation or the 5G communication channels that will be launched heavily for the next 5-6 years. So everything is kind of integrated, and we are working very much together in order to address these societal challenges. And if we take the next slide, I would like to show one thing that is a speciality, and that is that all our resources that we have, it's a 100 million euro investment that was made. It's open for everyone to use. So we are running a user facility, and here we have a complete, seamless, integrated setup in order to be able to rapidly realize your ideas or idea. So you, as whoever you are welcome to come and use our facility, of course, against a payment. And here you will have access to a great engineering support team that will help you to engineer whatever you need to be engineered in order to take your research further. A micro and nano fabrication, a clean room, 1,000 square meters, very advanced micro and nanofabrication clean room, an electron microscopy and spectroscopy and imaging center, and a nanophotonics center where we have everything from two-photon polymerization to fast picosecond laser spectroscopy, etc., etc. So it's really a complete setup that if you're working in the nanotechnology field, you will be able to use it, and you can come and use it yourself, or we can build a project together. So we are very open for discussions about this, and I think it's a chance. So those of you that may get an ERC, maybe you will have a possibility to come as a user. But those before, I mean, now in the application phase or in the years to come, you are welcome to contact us, and we will help you to develop your technology or your idea so it becomes really very competitive. So we are here to support that. Of course, the research activities at INL are what we have decided inside the INL with the 25 research groups, and these groups are working in these 4 areas I mentioned, in these 4 on these 4 societal dimensions I mentioned before, and in the 6 different clusters. So you are most welcome to INL and to take a piece of the ecosystem and the infrastructure we are offering. And as I told you before, we have a nano startup, we have an incubator facility, and those of you that don't know where Braga is, it's close to Porto in Portugal, in the north of Portugal. We have very close connections with Galicia, obviously for historical reasons, but also from a lot of research activities. And the whole Braga community and the north of Portugal is a very vibrating innovation and startup kind of zone, I would say. So there are plenty of possibilities to have good interactions. And now in this meeting, we are here, all of you, and we have a record number of people. It's more than 500 registered for this event. And we are very proud, of course, to host this event, but we're also very interested in order to convey to you all the information that you need in order to become a successful ERC applicant and then an ERC grantee. So with these words, I say welcome to INL and give the word back to you, George.
Thank you so much, Professor Lars Montelius, Director General of the International Iberian Nanotechnology Laboratory. Now that you know better our institution, the host of this ERC Info Session, you can consider INL for future applications to ERC actions, support actions. So we are a very welcoming organization, and we will be here for sure to support you in everything you need. Now we were counting on having with us Minister Manuel Heitor, the Portuguese Minister of Science and Technology. Despite all our efforts, it is not possible to have him here today for technical reasons. However, we have also anticipated in the agenda that we will have with us Minister Pedro Duque, the Minister of Science from Spain. As you know, Portugal and Spain are the 2 member states of INL. That's the reason why we have here in the agenda today both ministers of science from both countries. So now we welcome a video message from Minister Pedro Duque.
Hi everyone, it's my pleasure to welcome you along with Minister Heitor to this European Research Council information session organized by the International Iberian Nanotechnology Laboratory. ERC is the premier European funding organization for excellent frontier research and a cornerstone of Horizon Europe, the next EU framework program for research and innovation. European Research Council grants recognize the most ambitious ideas and talents, proving to be some of the most competitive funding in the world. More than 450 ERC projects have been awarded for principal investigators based in Spanish institutions in the beginning of Horizon 2020, a testament to the talent and hard work of the scientists in our country. The highest success rate for Spanish applicants has been for the starting grant, with an average of 20 projects awarded per call. It's also worth noting that the domain of physical sciences and engineering accounts for more than half of the successful participation of Spanish institutions, with more than 300 million euros in funding. Just a few days ago, the results of the latest Synergy Grant call were released, with 11 researchers based in Spanish institutions participating in 7 Synergy Grant projects. 2 of these groups are coordinated by Spanish scientists, well recognized in the field of nanotechnology. These are excellent results for the Spanish research community in the most competitive call in the history of ERC. I encourage you to make the most of this excellent opportunity to speak directly with our national points of contact for Horizon Europe and various ERC grantees themselves. Their expertise is an exceptional resource that will give you the tools to prepare the most competitive proposals possible and better understand how the evaluation process works. Best of luck.
Thank you so much, Minister Pedro Duque, for being here with us today, remotely through a video message. Before handing over to my colleague Núria Barros from the Business and Strategic Relations Office in INL, we have here one question from Eddie Goba. Tak, Lars, do you also work with economists and social scientists, or is it mainly natural science focused?
Thank you for the question. We would very much encourage the interaction with the social sciences and the economical sciences. So we are running projects that would very much fit into that dimension. So we are open to have discussions about these things. And as you know, we are doing, I mean, just the establishment of an intergovernmental research organization on nanotechnology, it's a unique thing. It's the only one in the whole world. And all these dimensions that we're doing now, it's taking the first steps in a rather unknown territory. And it's a extremely nice possibility for other sciences than just the physical or the chemistry or the biological or the hardcore sciences to be integrated and study the way we move forward. So I welcome every discipline to have a discussion. So thank you for the question, and most welcome to contact us for further discussions.
Thank you so much, Professor Lars. I now remind every one of our attendees that we have a poll running in the poll section. You can find it in the bottom part of your screen. So you just need to click on polls and answer to the question about in what level are you for ERC applications. Thank you once again, Professor Lars. Now I hand over to Núria Barros, my colleague from the Business and Strategic Relations Office of INL.
Hello, George. Thank you for introducing me. Good morning, everyone. So as George was saying, we are going to have in this agenda of today first block of a first panel session, which will deal about the ERC most informative part. So we will see different aspects like the kind of course that we have, the different evaluation process. And for this, we will have the national contact points of Spain and Portugal. And at the end, you will have the opportunity to ask questions, so you can put your questions in the question and answer part of this webinar. So first, we will have Rui Muña, National Contact Point of ERC in Portugal for Horizon Europe. So Rui Muña, would you like to start introducing the type of course that we have for ERC?
Yes, good morning to you all. I'm going to share my screen. hope you all can see it. Yes, just some feedback.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so good morning to you all. It is a pleasure to be here, and I would like to thank the INL for the invitation to this ERC Info Session of 2020. Before I jump into what really brings me here, which is to talk about the ERC, well, it's important to explain a bit more focused now on the applicants based in Portugal, that PERIN, Portugal in Europe Research and Innovation Network, is the successor of the IRNI Framework Program Promotion Office, which everybody knows as GPPQ. PERIN is composed by 7 founding partners, and this is described as a joint collaborative effort between Foundation for Science and Technology, the National Agency for Innovation, the Agency for Clinical Research and Biomedical Innovation, Portugal Space, and then Erasmus Plus, the Directorate General for Higher Education, as well as Ciencia Viva. PERIN is structured under a logic of specialization in order to be able to meet 2 of the main goals for Portugal in the period of 21-27, one being to double the Portuguese participation in European Union funding programs and to attract around 2 billion euros for research and innovation during that period, as well as tripling the number of students in mobility in higher education compared to the 2014-2020 period. Research careers is also at the core of our ministry's priorities, and so the ERC assumes particular relevance within this context. In the particular case of Horizon Europe, FCT is coordinating Pillar 1, which we all know that includes the ERC, Marie Curie actions and research infrastructures, and the horizontal activity where the commonly known teaming, tweening, error shares, costs, and other instruments are included, and also assuring the representation of GRC and Euratom. These are the faces you'll become familiar with throughout Horizon Europe, and you can count on us to provide all the support that you need. I apologize for this brief introduction, but we are facing this transition period between Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe, which we all hope that is just around the corner. Just let's keep our fingers crossed that Horizon Europe can start in January. Luís Mota and myself are the NCPs for Portugal for the ERC in Horizon Europe. And normally the handover would be done by my colleague Natalia Dias, the NCP for the ERC during Horizon 2020. But I take this opportunity, and I'm speaking before Natalia, but to highlight the amazing work developed by Natalia over the last few years. She has certainly raised the bar for us, and at the same time has made our job in this first few months much easier. So now let's really start and kick off this part. I'll be setting up the stage for my colleagues from Portugal and Spain, who will speak about the applicants' profiles, the evaluation process, and the submission of proposals. My duty here is to introduce you to the ERC and to talk to you about the different types of grants and anticipate some novelties that will be implemented in Horizon Europe starting in 2021. As national contact points for the ERC, our goal is not only to make you familiar with the funding schemes, but also to boost your confidence in order for you to apply and to increase your chances at being successful at it. So Minister Pedro Duque already made a very good introduction to the ERC, and I'm pretty sure that most of you, or almost every one of you, has heard about it. But we have this impressive number of attendees here today, and so it's never too much to say that the ERC funding schemes are open to individual researchers from all over the world and offer long-term grants for groundbreaking projects in any field of frontier research. Excellence is the sole evaluation criterion. And so the ERC is just one of the many different pathways for you to pursue in order to establish yourself as a fully independent researcher. But at the same time, the ERC funding schemes assure you you'll have the creative freedom and the financial autonomy to pursue the goals you establish. And so here in this slide, here are highlighted some aspects related to the type of proposals, the principal investigator or the host institution. I'm not going through this, and I'm sure you'll have the slides made available to you after the event. So I would like you just to focus on a couple of things. First, on the proposal. It should be new, audacious, and viable. This is a very challenging combination, but this is what you should be aiming at. And second, the host institution is not an evaluation criterion. So basically, this puts all the emphasis on you and on your idea. So just going through the types of grants really quickly, because then Natalia will go into more detail regarding this, and my colleagues from Spain, Laura and Stefania. So you have starting grants for early stage career researchers who have obtained the PhD between 2 to 7 years and demand a commitment to the project of a minimum of 50%. It's a 5-year grant for up to 1.5 million euros. In terms of the consolidated grants, as the name stands for a career consolidation, we're aiming at researchers with the PhD between 7 and 12 years, obtained at between 7 and 12 years, with a minimum commitment of 40% to the project, with a financial package of up to 2 million for a 5-year period. Then without these restrictions regarding the obtention of the PhD, you have the advanced grants for significant track records of achievements in the last 10 years. They demand a minimum of 30% of commitment, and then you have a financial package of about 2.5 million for a 5-year period. For a different level and a different dimension of projects, you have the synergy grants, where you aim at goals that you would not be able to pursue on your own, and so you need a consortia of 2 to 4 PIs, a project run for 6 years, and the financial dimension is much higher and up to 10 million, of course, in line with the ambition and this synergy between the 2 and 4 PIs. And as seed money to bridge the research of early stage research and marketable innovation, you have the proof of concept only eligible for ERC grantees, grant holders. So this seed money is 150K that is given to this type of projects. There's also additional funds regarding the startup costs for scientists moving to the European Union or associated countries, as well as the purchase of major equipment or access to large facilities. So this is the additional financial package. Now, some novelties on Horizon Europe. Of course, that the highlight would be the interview in the advanced grants that is now introduced. Also, there are some novelties regarding the panel structure, but my colleague Laura will talk about this in a greater detail. Regarding general regulation, I think you should all be aware the novelties regarding the provisions on open access is something the European Union is always working towards, and also the obligation to establish a research data management plan. Of course, then there's also some minor details regarding the protection of classified data. This has very minor impact on ERC, and the program monitoring and reporting does not affect the ERC by itself because the ERC keeps its own independent strategy. Now, the eligibility of international organizations is also something new, and the take-home message, without going into detail about law and wording, complicated wording, is that it will be less restrictive in Horizon Europe. So we're going from, for example, a range of 28 eligible international organizations in H2020 to more or less 80 in Horizon Europe. So this is just some take-home messages. My colleagues will go deeper in the part of the panel and other aspects of the ERC in Horizon Europe. Now, this is the calendar, and it's provisional for 2021. You can see here 3 calls opening in January for starting grant, consolidated grant, and proof of concept, and advanced grant opening later in 2021 around May. However, this assumes that Horizon Europe will start in January. What we don't know if this is going to happen. We all hope that it does. But if it doesn't, then what you should have as a reference is that these starting grant, consolidated grant, and proof of concept will open as soon as Horizon Europe starts. So this is basically the most important aspect that I wanted to highlight from here. Synergy grants will not open in 2021, and this is basically what I wanted to present. But before I pass the floor to Natalia and to my Spanish colleagues, let me just finish this slide that while we'll be provided with valuable information over the next hour or so, it's important for me to leave, for you to keep this in the back of your mind. So, do you feel your idea is interesting, bold, and feasible? And can you describe your project in 2 or 3 sentences to non-specialists? Are you able to describe your research as a picture? And what picture you would be showing in that case? What is the story you are going to tell? Then also think about communication and think about the difference between transferring knowledge or engaging. It's just a difference between just telling what you're going to do and describing your previous findings versus gaining a real involvement. And do you feel this is the right moment for you to apply? Well, in the end, if you try, you can make it happen. Now, what is important from all this I just said is that it's not me or any other NCP talking. These are statements from ERC grantees and how they found a way to be successful. I now hope that you enjoy the rest of the session. I thank you so much for your time. My email box here is an open door for you all, and you can find out more at pedin.pt or at the FCT webpage dedicated to Horizon Europe, which also includes a discussion group that you can join. I thank you so much for your time. I'm done.
Thank you very much, Rui. So we have here the poll that started, and we have some results. We can see that some people already know for which grants they are aiming. So for example, for the starting grant, we have 68% of people that would like to apply, the consolidator 23%, and the advanced grant 12%. So now we hand over to Natalia Diaz, who is a national contact point for ERC Horizon Europe in Portugal, and she will speak about the different the profile of the ERC candidates. So maybe you can see there if you don't know yet in which grant you can fit. So Natalia.
Hello everyone, thank you for inviting me. I'm sharing my screen now. So I want first of all to thank Rui for his kind words, and I want to tell you that he did extremely well. This is Rui's first session, and in my case it's going to be my passing over here. And so thank you, Rui, very much. You did a tremendous work. So I'm here to talk about the ERC candidate profile. So for ERC, only excellence matters. The ERC aims to empower individual researchers and provide the best settings for creativity. Here it's not for consortia, so that's all. There are other programs in Europe in this case. For that, in this case, is mainly individual researchers. ERC grants are open to excellent researchers of any nationality who may reside in any country at the time of the application. And so you'll have to bear in mind, it's important to bear in mind that the ERC peer review evaluation process has been carefully designed to identify scientific excellence irrespective of the gender, age, nationality, or institution of the principal investigator. As Rui already met, it's not evaluated, the institution. And so it's also, the ERC is also applicable for people who have unconventional research careers, or they have taken career breaks. For example, I can give you an example of a Portuguese ERC grantee who has a very unusual careers path for a ERC grantee. He was a Navy officer, and then when he retired, he decided to do a PhD, and then after that a postdoc, and then he got a starting grant when he was well over his 60s. So as you can see, ERC, it's all about excellence, and it doesn't matter exactly to have always the normal, the conventional path of your scientific career. And so there are several profiles according to each type of grant that Rui already introduced you to. So I'll talk first about the starting grant level. You have to have at least 2 years after your PhD, and it goes up to 7 years after the PhD. And here, the candidate should have the potential for research independence and evidence of maturity, at least one important publication as main author, or without the participation of their PhD supervisor. If you can have both, that's much better. A promising track record of early achievement appropriate to the research career stage is also very important. And it's also in the ERC kind of standards, the minimum standards, but that doesn't mean, I always say the candidates, this is the ERC standards, but it's not all the ERC grantees that fulfill, it's important to have this in mind, fulfill exactly all these boxes. They don't tick all the boxes, but this is the ERC standards anyway that you have to have in mind for benchmark your CV. So what ERC expects is up to 5 publications in major international peer-reviewed multidisciplinary scientific journals or in leading international journals in your field, and or peer-reviewed, also peer-reviewed conferences, proceedings, or monographs, depending on the scientific fields. And the PI at this level is expected to have at least 50% of working time dedicated to the project, and to spend at least 50% of his time or her time working in a EU or associated country. For the consolidator level, the candidate should show research independence and evidence of maturity, for example, by having produced several important publications as main author or without the participation of the supervisor. As I said before, better if you have the two. A promising track record of early achievements appropriate to the research career stage is also, like in the starting grants, very desirable. And you should have up to 10 publications in major international peer-reviewed multidisciplinary scientific journals and or in the leading international peer-reviewed journals of your field, and peer-reviewed conferences, proceedings, or monographs. And the dedication time expected for PIs is 40% minimum. This is all talking about the minimum. And you should spend at least 50% of working time in a EU or associated country. The advanced level, and the advanced candidate it should be an active researcher and have a track record of a significant research achievements in the last 10 years. Only the last 10 years are judged here. So it doesn't matter all your career, but only the last 10 years. That's important to have in mind. And these candidates should be exceptional leaders in terms of originality and significance of their research contributions, and also have trained very good researchers. It's also very important, and should be seen as in their field as a leader. So it's expected for them to have 10 representative publications from the last 10 years as main author in international peer-reviewed multidisciplinary scientific journals, and are leading international peer-reviewed journals, peer-reviewed conference proceedings and monographs, and leading expeditions or other equivalent activities. And an advanced PI is expected to have a dedication time to the project of at least 30% of his working time. and to spend at least 50% of that working time in the EU or associated country. The next type of grant is the synergy grants, and these are different from the previous one because these ones you require 2 to 4 PI, and the PIs must demonstrate that they have synergies and complementarities and added value together that could lead to major breakthroughs that would not be possible by the individual principal investigators working alone in their teams. Applications are expected then from a group of innovative and active PIs with competitive track records as appropriate to their career stage, and each must present as part of the proposal an early achievement track record or a 10-year track record. So here, all the levels that I just mentioned are included. So for a synergy grant, a group of PIs of different career stage levels can apply. It can be people who are at the starting level, consolidated level, and advanced level. So it can be a mix of the three of them. And the PIs are expected to have at least 30% dedicating time for the project. And they have to spend at least 50% of the working time in a EU or associated country. Although, since 2019, one PI can be in a different institution in a third country. And in H2020, the most popular country for the synergy countries to have as a third country has been the US, but can be any country. So what you have to think when you are preparing your application well ahead of time is make an introspection about where are you at now? Is this the right time to apply? So one thing that is basic, and I get most of the questions from the candidates, is about this very basic one. So let's go through it so that you all understand. It's how, if you are eligible, and for which type of grant are you eligible? So the main thing for the two levels that we require some eligibility check is for the starting and the consolidated. The main thing is to check how much time has passed since you got your PhD. The reference date is always the 1st of January of the working program year. For example, the coming working program is 2021. So the question for you now is, on January the 1st, on 2021, how much time has passed since I obtained my PhD? And this goes up to the day. So you have to count exactly from the date that you obtained your PhD degree. And then there are also some extensions for your eligibility period, namely for maternity. So all the women who had children, and doesn't matter if it was before the PhD, during the PhD, or after the PhD, you will have at least 18 months per child. And it's at least 18 months because if you have had the maternity leave that it's more, that it was longer than 18 months, if you have documents proving it, so you will have even higher than the 18 months. But the 18 months, it's the minimum that you will get per child. And for paternity leave, it's only the effective numbers that you've taken. So you have to prove it with the Social Security or a statement from your employer. And then you have also other options, that is like the national service or clinical training, long-term illnesses that can give you also an extension. If you have a medical degree, specific rules may apply in what concerns the eligibility window and the eligibility extension. You have to check the work program for this. So it's important to think strategically. I always advise people, another question that I have very, very often is my CV competitive? What is your opinion? Well, I am a biologist, and I have difficulties in judging other CVs in other areas. So I always tell the candidates that they are the best evaluators for that, and they should benchmark themselves. And that's what I always recommend, and I recommend you all that are thinking about applying. You should benchmark your CV. You should check who is your competition, and check out other ERC grantees in your field and look at their CVs. You can Google. And one way, very easy to do all of these, it's check out the ERC website, where you can find all the projects and the PIs that have been funded. So you can check you can see here in the image, you can check the funding scheme that you're after, and the call year, the research domain, the country of the host institution, you name it. You have all the details. And then you can find out what has been funded in your research field, or you can benchmark also your idea and just to see what has been funding in your area. And this is very helpful. So you can search here who is the PI, and then you can Google their CV, for example. And you have also to bear in mind that the PI is the only leader, except for the synergy grants, of course, that there are several leaders. But the PI, on the individual grants, the PI leads the project. But the PI will not be working alone. So the project, the leader can select, and that's the great thing about the ERC, is that it allows you to select a team and recruit a team of your own choice. So you can select the best people to work with you and to help you to have, to lead your ideas to a successful end. And so you can recruit researchers, engineers, PhD and MSc students, technicians, whoever you need for your research to be successful. And these team members can be of any age, nationality, or country of residence, and they can be working at the host institution or be recruited internationally. In the application, team members can be indicated as specific individuals or as professional profiles to be recruited, so which is more often. So you don't have to indicate specific individuals, although many people do, but you can just say who do you need to perform a given task, and say what is the profile that you're after. So their participation must be fully justified in the proposal, and they must be assigned to project work packages and tasks. And as Rui mentioned before, I'm handing over here to the next team that it was presented by Rui, is Rui Munha and Luis Mota from FCT, who will take this task from now on for the ERC in Portugal. I am going to, it has been an enormous pleasure to be NCP for all these years for the ERC. It is a fantastic program that I'm very fond of, and has been a great pleasure to interact with so many brilliant minds. And I am from Horizon Europe on, I will be focusing on the cluster 2, creativity, culture, and inclusive society. And here are my contacts. If you are from these areas, I'm very willing to help you to succeed in the Horizon Europe applications. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Natalia. So now we have with us Laura Moedano, who is a national contact point in Spain for ERC, and she will talk about the evaluation process.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm going to share the presentation. Hello, everyone, and thank you for organizing this event, for hosting this event. Just hold on a second, because good. I think you can see the presentation. So thank you for hosting this event to INL. Thank you, Professor Lars, and thank you to Rui and Natalia for your presentation. I just want to take advantage and give the opportunity to present to my colleague. We both are the Spanish National NCPs in Spain, Estefanía Muñoz, who works at the European office at GECIT, and myself, Laura Modano, who works at the Institute of Health Carlos III. Both of us are in Madrid. As we said, well, I'm going to talk about the evaluation process. So, as it has been said, there are some novelties, some new things that maybe you should take into account before preparing your proposal. And it's about the new 2 panels that are in total. We have 27 evaluation panels. You can propose, you prepare your proposal in any area you want, any area you are expert on, but you have to submit a proposal in any of these panels. So the new panel for physical science and engineering is materials engineering, and also social science and humanities, human mobility, environment, and space. Life science has been also refined and new description has been included. So in order to present your proposal, to submit your proposal, take into account all these panels in order to take the best one for your proposal. This revision was done in order for scientific reasons, in order to reflect scientific reality in a better way, integrate parts of science that were also far only implicity, encourage applicants to be more comfortable and to see their research area and ensure coherence in each panel. And also for a practical need, it's to keep the balance between all the panels. Okay, so in taking into account the evaluation process, we have the presidents of the different panels that are public during the call. So you can have a look to it and see who is going to be the president of the panel. The panelists are not public during the call, but in order to take an approach, you could go 2 years before your call. So if you are going to present in 2021, then you should go to 2019 to see the different panelists, to see the people who is going to evaluate your proposal. All this is in ERC website, so you have the link. So concentrate on the evaluation process. It's organized in 2 steps, although you have to submit your proposal all together before the deadline. So although it's going to be evaluated in different steps, everything has to be ready before the deadline. So in the first step, you are going to be evaluated the part B1. So take into account that this is very important, that this part is very well written and very well presented in order for you to have the opportunity to pass. So this part is going to be an assessment in a remote model by 3 or 4 panel members. And then with these results, it will form a ranking list. And then the panel meeting will see these different proposals. So it will be more or less 1/3 the budget. So the results of this evaluation, this first step evaluation, could be A, B, or C, and only proposals with the result A can go into the second step. So in the second step, the whole proposal is going to be evaluated. So B1 and B2, it's now all together, and 4 or 5 panel members will review the proposal plus 2 or 3 external reviewers. So as a result of this remote evaluation will be a ranking list, and a panel meeting will take into account these evaluations. Afterwards, an interview should be passed, and in the call, and this call is going to be an interview not only for starting consolidators, but also for advanced researchers. So at the end, you will have to pass and get an A to get fund. So in the first step, you are going to be evaluated by the part B1, and then pass to the second step. Take into account that when you are submitting the proposal, you can exclude up to 3 individual reviewers in case of well, it's good to know. And so the evaluation process, it's going to be very tight, and you have to be the best. So take into account that if the proposal it's evaluate in a different way, that it's not A, let's say C, you can be maybe you cannot submit the proposal for the following year. So for example, if you have a C for the first step, you won't be able to present your proposal until 2024. So take into account that well, you have to be prepared. You have to take all the questions that Rui and Natalia has said, and see if you are prepared for the proposal. The evaluation criteria, as it has been said, is the excellence of 2 aspects: your project and yourself. So regarding the project, you are going to be evaluated the groundbreaking nature, ambition, and feasibility. They are going to see how relevant it's going to be what you are going or what you are proposing, the novelty of your proposal, and the impact, how high risk, high gain is going to be your proposal. And also the scientific approach. They are going to see how feasible it's the project you are submitting, the methodology you are taking, the novelty, and the feasibility, how the time is going to develop in the proposal, how you are going to do it, how it's going to be your commitment. And taking into account the other part that you are going to be evaluated is the researcher, the investigator. So you are going to see, they are going to see how is your ability to conduct groundbreaking research, how independent you are, and how feasible is going to be because of your previous experience. So this is all from my part. And I pass you over to Stefania.
Yes, thanks, Laura. I would like to take the opportunity to read the poll that we had, the results about the domain of the researchers that are participating in today. So 44 of them will be in the physical science domain, 33 in the life science ones, and 22 in the social science domain.
Good.
Yeah, so now we pass the floor to Stefania Muñoz, who will provide you more information on the proposal structure.
Thank you so much, Natalia. Thank you for your invitation here for the preparation of this event in the INL. And well, I'm going to explain how the ERC proposal looks like. at this time, you may be wondering if you should start writing your proposal now that the calls are still not not open. And my answer is yes, of course. It takes a lot of time to prepare a competitive ERC proposal. Maybe you can manage to write the proposal in just 2 months, but certainly it takes a lot of time to explore and select the idea that fits better for this funding program. So my recommendation here is that instead of starting writing without a plan, it's better to carefully review the instructions first. And at the moment, we don't have the final documents approved, but you can refer to the one published in the last call. They contain some of the keys to be successful in the next call. Here you can download the guide for applicants for the 2020 call, but it may be very similar to the next one. And the work program. The work program includes the information about the philosophy of the ERC you may know before starting writing of your proposal. And also it has the main feature for each call. And the guide for applicants has the information of the evaluation process, the evaluation criteria, and it explains how to complete your application. If you have ever introduced in the reading of these 2 documents, you may have noticed that the ERC instructions on how to prepare the proposal are really brief. And there are some wording that is repeated, such as the term this high risk, high gain. A competitive ERC proposal must necessarily understand what is the sense of this funding program. The ERC awards long-term individual grants in any field of research pursuing groundbreaking, high-risk, high-gain research projects. Once this is clear, and once you know the evaluation criteria and the process.
Sorry, Stephanie, to interrupt you. I think that the slides are not shown. We are going to try to put them on.
I'm sharing my...
You are sharing your screen?
Oh, no, sorry.
No problem.
It was just... no?
Yeah, now we can see it. You just need to, okay.
Okay, these are the essential guides I was talking before, and here are the links to download them before the call start, because these documents are not being approved yet. And this is the essence of the ERC program. Okay, now taking into account this philosophy of the ERC program that also my colleagues have talked before, we can move to the templates. The ERC application is composed of 4 blocks, 4 parts. There is the administrative forms that contain the general information about the participant, the host institution, also details on the budget, the ethic table review, and some specific questions such as this exclusion of the evaluators in your process, and also the expected working time. In these administrative forms, you have to upload some supporting documentation, such as the high institution support letter, the PhD certificate, docs needed on the eligibility criteria, and the ethics self-assessment and the security. And then we have 2 self-contained documents you have to upload in PDF format that contains the research proposal itself. The ERC full proposal then is composed of this B1, B2, plus the budget description that is standing in the administrative forms. If you have ever opened these templates, you might have realized that they are almost blank documents. This is my drawing of the ERC templates. These blank documents are intentionally designed to allow you to tell the story your way around. Use this freedom to show your own expression and creativity. Bear in mind that so diverse masterpieces as Las Meninas and this Starry Night and White by Maledic was all painted on white canvas. All of them meet the criteria of excellence to be recognized as a visionary paintings. So consider both the maturation of the idea and the proposal writing as a creative process in itself, and take advantage of these blank documents to show what is unique in your proposal and in your career. When writing your proposal, you just must ensure you meet the evaluation criteria that Laura has said before. And what you have to understand in this evaluation criteria for the research project is that any ERC project has two dimensions. On one side, we have the dimension of the high gain. This dimension will open up new horizons in the research field. The impact of this dimension may have a very long term, maybe 20 years, and this gain must be significant to justify any major risk taking. The breakthrough belongs to this dimension. On the other side, there is the dimension of the groundbreaking nature. The ERC will fund research projects that will lead to significant advances in the field. These are your project contributions and what you should be able to achieve in a project of 5 years and 1.5 to 2.5 million euros. This will be assessed toward the feasibility of the scientific approach in the first step of the evaluation and against the methodology in the second step. The different part of your project, I mean the objectives, the concept, and the approach must be groundbreaking. They have to be achievable in your project life, okay? But this groundbreaking nature might not have the potential to open up new research horizons. That is why the project has to include this high gain dimension too. Once this is understood, I come back to the templates, and I will go through these sections and try to provide some practical tips to complete the curriculum vitae sections and so on. Well, the B1 document has 3 sections: the standard synopsis limited to 5 pages, the curriculum vitae, and the track record 2 and 2 pages. And the part B2 is the research, the scientific research proposal itself, and has a limitation of 14 pages. This is under negotiation for the next work program. This has 2 sections: state of the art and objectives, and methodology. And keep in mind that this research proposal must be assessed towards the descriptions of resources that you must to include them in the administrative forms. For the curriculum vitae, well, in this case, the template is more or less predefined, and the evaluators appreciate these templates. So my recommendation here is to follow the templates, condense it if you have lots of things to express, and adapt it if necessary. In the funding ID, you must indicate all the ongoing grants and the submitted grants here. With this information, the evaluators will assess the novelty of your ERC proposal in relation with your other projects, and they will check if there is any overlap or double funding with your ongoing grants. In the section of the track record, that is quite different from the starting and consolidated grants and advanced grant, it's against a blank document. So here what you should do is to study very well, very carefully the evaluation criteria for the principal investigator and check out what is written in the guide for applicants. Here you should list your important achievements. Try to summarize your contributions. The guide said that some relevant bibliometric indicators may also be included. So include them only if they add value to your presentation as researcher. If not, don't include them. It depends also in the field of research. Maybe you are most familiarized with Google Scholar. So use a narrative approach to explain any unconventional aspect of your track record. Maybe you can add an opening paragraph like the one shown in this slide. You should also explain the particularities of your field. Instead of saying, I have published 5 papers, you should particularize what are the main journals and the main conferences in your field of research. And finally, explain narratively your contributions, making use of attractive designs. Here I provide some examples in these links. Well, the B1 proposal begins with this abstract. This cover page contains the information from the abstract. It's an essential part of your proposal since it's the first part any evaluators will read. And this must contain all the essential information to understand your project, okay? You may optimize the page structure to allow space to introduce some design of your project or your project idea. So, and you can use these additional 1,000 characters to explain your, in case you have a cross-domain project, okay, to explain why are you addressing 2 different panels. The extended synopsis, this blank document, should contain all the essential information of your project, okay? Taking particular attention to the groundbreaking nature of the research proposal and highlighting the feasibility of your scientific approach. You should read also the information provided in the guide for applicants, that is really short. What are the key elements of this B1? Okay, the B1 contains the essential information. You have to bear in mind that this part will be evaluated in the first step of the evaluation. So you must capture here the sense of your proposal and also show feasibility. You must show your exceptional idea addressing an important challenge. You should avoid lack of ambition, no impact, or incremental research. Here you should also show your preliminary results that support the scientific feasibility. Therefore, avoid showing fishing expeditions research and lack of evidence. Assure novelty in the concept, the approach, or the methodology. You should show how your results impact beyond your research field. So avoid narrow impact. These recommendations are important in order to pass to the second step of the evaluation. In the second step, the reviewers, the evaluators will read your B2 and will have also access to the B1. In the guide for applicants, you will find more details on how to complete this part. As I said before, the B2 has two main sections, state of the art and the objectives. You must keep in mind that you should write the objectives in the context of the state of the art. You don't have to write two separate levels for this. You should here explain how and why your work is important for your field and what is the impact. Highlight any unconventional aspect of your proposal. The focus here in the B2 is the methodology part. Here you should describe key intermediate goals and explain your methodology in relation to the state of the art, highlighting also any intermediate stage, which may require adjustments. The key points of this B2 are, well, here you have to explain the scientific and technical details in depth. So you have to write everything needed to understand the process, that you will be able to achieve the final aim. It's very important to understand that this B2 focuses on the specificity of the how. Instead of writing, answering the what are you doing to do? Try to focus on how are you going to do something, okay? The how. This methodology part must be maybe 2/3 of these B2 proposals, more or less 9 pages should be great for this methodology part. Highlight also any alternative routes to explain if it's something that can fail in your work plan. You should detail the time scales for this plan, and you should also explain where is your team working in the tasks you are proposing. Include also the key intermediate goals, and don't forget to compromise outcomes that will produce advance for your field of research. As general considerations, be concise and work hard on your written proposal, keeping in mind that the evaluation criteria are important, but use the freedom that the ERC enables you with these blank documents to do your dream proposal. Also get as much as possible critical feedbacks from your colleagues, one who are specialists and who are not specialists in your field, and follow your own criteria. And that's all. Mucha suerte with the preparation of your proposal. Here I leave some resources you can consult when writing your proposal. This one has already explained by Natalia, and this is a link where you can see some grantees explaining their proposals. So thank you so much for your
Thank you, Stefania. So now we finish with this panel with the national contact points, just their presentations, because now we have their questions, the questions from the audience. So let's start. First question, it's from Oriol Ros. He says, I had a starting grant negatively evaluated because I had no previous funding and the publication track record was good but not outstanding, whereas the evaluation of the project was very high. I reckon that for consolidator grants, the focus on previous achievement of the investigator rather than on the project will be only accentuated. So who would like to get back to Oriol?
I think we're all, yeah, Natalia, go. I was going to suggest you, yeah.
Can you repeat the question? I didn't hear it well, sorry.
Yeah, he says that he applied for a starting grant, but he was negatively evaluated because he had no previous funding or publication track record. Well, in the publication track record, they said that it was good, but not outstanding, while in the evaluation of the project, the evaluation of the project in itself was very high. So I believe that he wants to apply for the consolidator grant, but
what is he asking?
If this fact of not having previous funding or publication track record will still be negatively evaluated in the consolidator grant, because previously he got these comments in the starting grant.
Yeah. Well, so if you've got these comments, it's of course important for you to build on your CV and to develop your CV, and it has to be more developed before you apply again. And you have always to take into account what the panels and what the evaluators say, because that is highly likely if you keep the same things that you will get a similar result. So I suggest that you build on funding, coordinating projects or getting additional funding, getting PhD students, and getting good publications, and invited as guest speaker for important conferences. That's all very important for applying to ERC.
Okay, so next question is regarding the starting grant. Manuel Napi asks us, how important it is to have a corresponding author publication for the evaluation process?
Answer. It's important. These are the unanswered because we have been answering lots of questions.
I cannot see it answered, but
all right.
I don't know if there was a similar one.
Also, but, yeah. Yes, it is important, particularly if you are in the consolidator level and above. It is important to have some correspondence because that gives an indication of your seniority and your that you are leading a group. But of course, as I said before, it doesn't mean exactly that everything should be by the book of ERC. That not all, that's why it's good also to benchmark your CV, because not all ERC grantees will have exactly all this model like CV that we indicated. This is the standard that ERC wants, but it's, if you have a very, very, very innovative, very good idea, and if you write very well your proposal, that I always say to candidates that that can take you a lot to a lot of places, and can sometimes mitigate some weaknesses of your CV, but nevertheless, there's always you have to have overall a good CV.
Okay, now for there are a couple of questions about the H index. Enriqueta Louro asks us, is the H index of relevance for the evaluation of the starting grant PI, of a starting grant PI?
I would say yes, but it depends on the field. There are some fields that this H index is not relevant, such as the social science, for example. So it depends on, you have to compare your curriculum vitae with the outstanding college in your field. And this is the important, just to focus on your field and to assure that you are in the top position in your particular field of research regarding publications, I mean.
Okay, and for the consolidator grant, I don't know if it's similar, but they ask, is there a reference for H index or number of high impact applications as first last author?
There are some papers published with this bibliometric information. They have studied the last grantees, and they have more or less fixed H index for each panel, but it's just a reference. You have to demonstrate a high-level curriculum vitae. Again, the same.
Okay, then Lorena Dieguez is asking us regarding the areas and panels. Sometimes it's complicated as the project falls at the interface between two fields. For instance, engineering applied to life sciences. But the choice of panel is crucial. What to do?
Well, at the end, you are going to be evaluated by a group of people. So what I would suggest is to think who is going to listen, or who is going to read your proposal, so who is going to understand you the most. And taking into account this, try to find the right panel, because sometimes your research area is in a different panel, but at the end, the evaluators are going to see how you are going to do it, so try to see how they are going to understand, who is going to be the best to understand your proposal.
Mm-hmm. Okay. They also ask about the panels from 2020 will not be the ones for 2021, right?
The next call is going to be 2021. Mm-hmm. So the panelists will be in let's say 80%, the same as 2019. That's the normal rule. So try to see who has been in this panel in the year 2019 to see who is going to be there to evaluate you. 80% could be more or less the people who will repeat.
Okay.
And also try to see their profile, how is their research area. So people, when you know who is listening to you, maybe you can also figure out the questions they are going to propose to you. So try to be in the other side when you are preparing the interview, you know, and in their shoes, let's say.
Then Diogo Cabral asks us, what is the recommended commitment for starting grants?
I would say 85%, something like that. It's not enough. 85, more or less. You have to be concentrated in this first starting project in your research career.
Okay, and Clara Casado asks us, how can we face the different meanings, bias of excellence in the different areas?
As it has been said, maybe it is comparing yourself, your CV with other colleagues in your field. So excellence, yes, can be very ambiguous, but you have to be one of the best. So try to compare yourself and how far you have been in your proposal compared to the other ones.
Okay. Then Giovanni Varelli asks us, how can a project be feasible and high risk at the same time? In my experience as SSH, I guess social sciences, those projects that have been funded were rather the opposite than high risk.
I somehow agree with this. In social science, it's quite different. Most of the project propose a new theoretical framework to understand something that sometimes is already studied. So you should focus on proposing this new theoretical framework.
Okay. So Jill Serrancoli is asking us, and for the applicants based in Spain, will there be any workshop focused on preparing the proposal?
Yes, we plan to do a couple of workshops in December.
Okay. Then Lorena asks us, on the CV file and regarding ongoing submitted projects, is this only projects as PI? I guess she refers if she can put the projects that where she's not a PI.
Yeah, mainly, but mainly it's expected to be the PI. I don't know if Estefania and Laura agree.
This is in the funding ID part. You have you must write also the projects where you are just a partner, not the PI, because they want to assess if there is any overlap with the funding.
And also your ability to see how you organize the funding that you have received. You are talking that you might receive quite a lot of money, so you have to be able to manage that kind of amount.
Okay. Then she also asks us, how can one show the research proposed is not incremental and still show preliminary results?
Well, this is about these two dimensions that I was talking before. Your work plan can be, is not the best, but might be incremental. I mean, each of one step, each of one objectives and tasks. But your aim, your final goal must be groundbreaking. You must propose something that go beyond the far away from the state of the art. Although your work plan may be based on ongoing methodologies in your lab.
Okay, and then from Manuel Napi, they ask you, Stefania, he says, thank you very much for the presentation regarding the ERC starting grant, how important it is to have a preliminary result in Part B for the evaluation process.
I would say this is very important because what is written in the evaluation summary reports sometimes a lack of preliminary evidence in the candidate. So this is highlighted by the panel members. So I would say, please ensure that you have evidence of what you are proposing can be achieved in this ERC project.
Okay, and then regarding the panels, Noemi is asking if it will be possible to apply to more than one panel.
In fact, when you submit the proposal, you have the main panel, and also you can choose another one. So for interdisciplinary proposals, yeah, and then these proposals will be evaluated by these other evaluators. So yeah, you can submit the proposal, like say first panel.
Okay, then we have a question about Part B and Part B. They say, are Part B1 and B2 supposed to be complementary, or should B2 include some of B1?
They should be self-contained documents. In the first step of the evaluation, the panel members only have access to the B1. So don't refer, don't leave something for the B2 and should prepare this.
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry, I don't know if you had some connection problems, but I had it, so I was disconnected for a bit. So I guess you already replied to the last question. So we can continue. Next one would be, can you explain a bit more, please, how reviewers will assess the feasibility of the project in the B1 section? You could hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Stefania, you want to say something?
Yes. Although in B1 there is no section for the methodology, my recommendation is that you give some notes about the methodology. So you will, you should explain the objectives, and maybe if you have space for this, you should go further with the tasks. The feasibility of the project will be assessed with what you are proposing in the B1 and what you have achieved during your life as researcher before. So you have to show also these preliminary results that support the idea that you are proposing for the ERC can be achievable. This also in relation with the timescales and the objectives and tasks and so on.
Okay. Then we are going to take just one or two more questions because we need to speed up and go to the next panel session. So from Miguel Oliveira, why having PhD students is an expected output of the CV? Not all researchers have an academic career, or they may be based on countries where only positions as lecturers or above can be supervise PhD students.
I can answer. Well, it's not, crucial, but it's of course very welcome. But you don't have necessarily to have, particularly at the starting level, that you are not expected so much to have that. But of course, it just shows more the degree of your seniority, but and leadership. But it's not mandatory, of course.
Okay, so maybe last question. So seniority depends on having been at the right spot at the right time with mentors that have been passed you to relevant places. And then the groundbreaking nature of your proposal is secondary, just like in all grants. So would you like to comment on this?
It's, I would say, if anything, it's more important. Sorry, Nuria, we were frozen, so I was already starting to answer. It is not like that. The groundbreaking nature of the proposal is very, very crucial in ERC. And I even said before in my presentation that that can overcome some weaknesses of your CV. If you have a very groundbreaking idea that really will push forward the frontiers of knowledge, and that will be, if anything, more important in your CV. But of course, always the two dimensions are important, but it's not by any means that the nature, the innovation capacity of your proposal is secondary to your CV. That's not true.
Okay. Would you like any of you add anything else? No. Okay, so thank you very much to the four of you, Rui, Laura, Stefania, and Natalia. There are still some questions pending. I don't know if we have some more time later on, we can go through them, or we could try to reply to them in another moment. So, but now we need to pass to the next panel session, that it's with the ERC holders. So I pass to you, to my colleague Michela Mataloni, that will introduce them. Thank you very much.
Now we will start the second panel session, and we will have the possibility to hear from the experience of ERC grants holders and from an ERC evaluator. What does it take to win an ERC grant? So I welcome to the stage now Beatriz Pelas. She has been recently awarded with a starting grant in Spain. Nuno Silva and Luis Mafra. They both have been awarded with a consolidator grant in Portugal under the 2019 call. And Pedro Camanho, who is an advisory member of the engineering panel at the European Research Council and also ERC evaluator. So first of all, let me thank you for being here today to share with us your experience. We will have questions from the audience at the end of the panel session. First, we will start with a brief presentations of the projects and ideas that brought the ERC grants holder to win this prestigious grant. So please, Beatriz, the floor is yours. You can introduce us to your project. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. I hope you can see properly my screen. I would like to thank the organizers for the invitation. And first, I would like to introduce my project. And I will be happy to share with you my experience. I currently work at the University of Santiago de Compostela in the Centro Singular de Investigación en Química Biológica y Materiales Moleculares. The last call of the ERC starting grant is named SPACID. That is the acronym for Spatially Controlled Ligand Arrangement by Origami-Based Nanoprinters. I applied in the PE5 panel in the synthetic chemistry and materials. And my groundbreaking idea came from some preliminary work that I was doing. I was involved during my postdoctoral time that was presented in this paper. When we realized that sometimes more is not better. So I work in the field of nanomaterials. And normally what we are adding, what we are doing is to try to decorate the nanoparticles as many as we can. And we realize that this sometimes is not the best of the choices. And I realized that the techniques that with the ligands on the surface of the nanoparticles, that for me, I think it will be crucial for the development of new nanomaterial, nanomedicine, for example, to be able to develop some small nanoprinters that will be able to copy, for example, the ligands that are present in the capsids of viruses, for example, to make particles that express these ligands in the same disposition and exactly the same number and orientation. and to make these small nanoprinters to produce enough amount of materials. So I thought that we can develop these printers using DNA technology, DNA origamis, and then to produce enough materials using these desired conformations. This will allow us to produce particles, as I said, or nanomaterials. This can be extended for any other fields, not only nanobiotechnology, in which the disposition of these ligands will be crucial. Also, the final idea is to develop or in vitro, but my idea is just to stop in the very basic outcomes from this technology, learn about how ligands are defining how materials are behaving in cells. And yeah, that's all from my project. I don't wanna take much of your time. And here also you have my email contact in case you want some feedback from my side. And yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Beatrice. Very interesting. Now I would like to ask Nuno to share his presentation about here ERC Grant Consolidator Grant Project.
Thank you very much, Michaela. I hope you can all hear me. Good morning to everyone. Thank you for the invitation. It's really a really nice initiative. And it's really a pleasure to be here sharing my adventures with the ERC. So I'll just start sharing my PowerPoint I've just prepared for this. And okay, so my project is about getting nano temperature mapping into the third dimension. So taking the thermometers that people in the field are developing with a high space resolution and bring them to make three-dimensional temperature maps. But before I go into more details, let me just share you my previous history, my previous story with ERC. It started back in 2014. So I thought I had an idea. I just wrote it down. I just started polishing my idea, and I applied for this starting grant back in 2014. I got a ticket to Brussels. I went to the interview. I prepared myself for the interview, but during that time, I realized that there were some gaps in my project. There are some things that it were just not right, and so basically, when I came out from the interview, when I went out that door, I was almost sure that I didn't got the project, and in fact, that was the outcome. But I thought to myself that I would be back again. I would be back into work. I would be back into to try to get better results, a better project, and I wanted to have a second chance to get my ideas granted, funded. Luckily, I got funding from the national FCE, so the National Funding Agency, and this turned out into some new results and into some new ideas. And so this time I was more confident, and I was able to design a better project that was finally funded. And with this project, we are going to be able to address this question of nanotemperature mapping in 3 space dimensionals. Let me just go a little back. So we're working with thermometers with high space resolution, working without wires at the distance, and addressing one single point. And we were able to get this into 1-dimensional, and we were able to get this working into 2 dimensionals. But getting into the 3rd dimension was really a challenge. It was a challenge for us. It was a challenge for the community working in this area. And at the given point, we got a hint. We published some results on that hint. We got a hint that we could go into the 3rd dimension, which means producing 3-dimensional temperature maps and using that to address both fundamental science problems as thermal properties across nanostructures, and also to address applications. For instance, in tumor ablation by heat, I mean, we're talking about hyperthermia, so heat being released and being spreading in 3 dimensions. And so if you want to do it properly, you need to have information about that in the 3 space dimensions. And also things like temperature controlled release, like this drug here, that you need to get to a certain temperature threshold to get the drug release. And so you need to know at the distance in 3 space dimensions, what's your temperature there. So this is pretty much my adventures here. It did pay off the effort. It will for sure pay off for the next 5 years. And so it's, I'm very lucky for this, and I'm very grateful to the European ERC funding program. So thank you. That's all for the moment. So I give back the floor to Michaela. Thank you.
Thanks, Nuno, for sharing your experience. I would like to welcome now to the stage Luis with the presentation of his project. So Nuno, if you can unshare the screen. Thanks. Luis, now you can go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I cannot hear you. Can you speak again?
We can hear you.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
Nice. Now I can hear you as well.
Thanks.
Let me share the screen.
Okay, now it's in presentation mode. So
Can you see it?
yes.
Nice. So, okay, my name is Luis Mafra. First, I would like to thank the organization for this invitation, and I should say also good morning to everybody. So, without any further delay, I want to start right away. So, my ERC project is about studying or unveiling CO2 chemisorption mechanisms in solid sorbents using surface-enhanced solid-state NMR techniques. So the motivation of the project, I mean, global warming is the challenge of the century. So this is the motivation. So to mitigate CO2 emissions from large point sources, CO2 capture technologies are available, among which post-combustion CO2 capture, as you see here, right, is in the running front of the technologies, as it can be easily retrofitted to existent coal-fired power plants, for example. At the core of these technologies lies the CO2 adsorbent material. Over the last decades, solutions of amines, liquid amines, let's say, have been used. However, they present they have several drawbacks, like they are toxic, carcinogenic, and they also require high regeneration energy requirements. So to overcome these aspects, solid sorbents are promising replacers. And there is a myriad, a zoo of these materials, these solid sorbents out there. But the desired material must comply with these 3 properties here on the right side to be compatible with the technology I just spoke about. So it appears that the best materials for this are amine modified borosilicas. So let me tell you something about them. just quickly. This gives you a pictorial idea of such adsorbent materials. They are usually porous and highly tunable. The pore surface of these materials can be functionalized with a myriad of molecules. I'm particularly interested in functionalizing these surfaces with amines because they are highly tunable as well. You can play with lots of properties on these amines. I mean, you can have linear amines, you can have, more bulky amines and play with the amine densities and then have different results with interaction with gases. And then you just absorb the gas you want to study. I'm most interested in acid gases, particularly CO2. So the main strategy of my project is condensed in this slide, okay? And that's really important that you show your idea in a pictorial view. So the idea is really to build an atomic and molecular level understanding of these gas-solid interactions. So before going into that, let me tell you that the industrials or chemical engineers are very much interested about these sorbent properties. However, if you want to tune these sorbent properties for a given engineering process, you must deeply understand the chemistry of the solid sorbent you are dealing with. So just to give you a few words about solid sorbent can unfold in on three layers: an inorganic layer, an organic layer, and the gas phase. A lot have been done to study these layers, particularly using textural properties to study outer layer, also surface indication strategies to modify the organic parts, but nothing or almost nothing. We are in the dark age studying this interface between the gas phase and the organic phase. And that's where is my novelty. What do I want to do exactly? I want to study at the atomic level thermal and oxidative degradation mechanisms, which are not known so far. Why? Because it's tremendously difficult. Because the study of these interfaces are not amenable or not easily amenable to spectroscopic techniques that will then provide you atomic level information. So then, of course, the idea is to use simple gas mixtures to more complex mixtures that can mimic industrial flue gas mixtures. And for these, I have also under the sleeve some tricks to just implant isotopic SPI atoms, SPI nuclei, so I can design smarter NMR experiments. And the overall idea is to really narrow down this knowledge gap between the macroscopic world on the left side and more atomic scale or atomic level information, provide feedback on the best sorbents. And just two overarching goals. So the project has more or less 10 goals, but I just want to emphasize two overarching goals of my project. It's about the green one, which is about designing new NMR methods, and the blue one is about doing smart surface modifications. I'm not going to details, so this is just describing in more detail the green goal I discussed previously. And just to finish, I would like to say that this is a unique project where we must work in the interface of different disciplines. I put here 4 disciplines, so adsorption chemistry or adsorption physics, combined with experts in computer modeling, spectroscopists, which is my background, and also you need to talk with surface chemists. Thank you very much.
Now we have a question for Beatriz. What was the preparatory work that you needed for developing your proposal idea, and how much time did it take for you to develop the proposal idea?
Okay, I will share a bit just to explain my experience about how I pursue that. And yeah, so I guess I'm gonna say nothing very new because I guess the other panelists has explained very well what an ERC project should contain. But yeah, how much time I take for preparing my proposal idea? Yeah, of course, this is the most difficult part, to have an idea, which is, as we have already heard many times here, that it should be high risk, high gain idea. This, I guess, to find the balance of the right risk and the feasibility of the idea is the most difficult part, and to be convincing for the reviewers. So this is what you have to assess if your idea, the risk that you are assuming when you propose it, and the creativity that this idea has is sufficient to be compensated also by the feasibility of this idea and the outcomes that if you are success, you will get. In my case, and I guess in many of the areas, also these ideas typically are multidisciplinary. They are involving different fields where your previous experience might not be as high as it should be. Of course, for the starting grant, your experience is limited to from 2 to 7 years of PhD after you completed your PhD. So my suggestion, and also is what I did, is to discuss my idea with experts in the field. So I went to visit some experts and discussed it, and I get some feedback from how they feel, because, for example, in my case, my proposal is based on the development of a DNA technology, based on the use of DNA origamis, in which my experience is limited. So I was discussing with an expert of the field, having his feeling about how realistic and how use this type of material. This is what I explained in my proposal, and breakthrough, Pedro just said, and also I think it is very clear, coming back from the idea, that make sure that the goals are clearly identified.
Well, Beatrice, thanks very much. I think you shared very interesting insights for the future ERC Tununo. Before, you already shared with us your path towards the consolidated grants mission. But I would like to ask if you want to add something more about the proper timing for an ERC applicant to submit a consolidated grant or a ERC grant, in terms both of PI career and proposal and concept development.
Thank you very much, Michael. So we were made these questions beforehand, so I have also prepared some slides. So your question is about timing, and of course, life is a moving target. So all these things, science, the state of art, is a moving target. Your career, your path is also moving, and your ideas are somewhere over here. So I think I would say that people should focus on these three aspects. So on your work, so being aware, so this aware of the state of art to get a new shining proposal, and so I think it's okay. I was looking also at some statistics. So I think, of course, so here since PhD, of course, I mean, there is a maximum here for the starting, another maximum here, but if you look at the success rate, it's basically some noisy flat line. So the success rate, it doesn't look like it depends on the number of years since PhD, which I think it means that people do a fair assessment of their own position, and I think people end up doing a fair assessment if they should go or not for a given call. So it brings back to the end of my presentation. So please feel free to address me any questions, any comments to my email. I would be glad to share these adventures on ERC. So thank you so much, and I will give back the floor to Michaela.
Thanks, Nuno. Another question now to Luis. We would like to know, how did you get prepared for the interview, and which are the tips you would like to share for preparing to the interview stage?
Okay, thank you. So for that, yesterday night I was thinking if I should prepare slides for this or not. So I got crazy and I prepared a bunch of slides, so I'm going to share it. I think it's convenient. Why is that? Can you see it?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, so tips for the interview. So this is, I should say, this is fully based on my own experience. Okay, you'll not get any thoughts about other experiences from other colleagues. So it's my experience here. So for you, I will have some items a la carte. So I will start with a starter. So how to prepare the interview. The main course will be about the interview day itself. And then if we have time, we can speak about also after the interview. Yes, the preparation step, I think it takes, of course, about 90% of the effort. Okay, and in my mind, I divide it in two stages: the private stage, which I call it as a loneliness stage. So, and then the public stage. So in this private stage, there is 4 main steps. So I idealize this. I mean, I see these as 4 steps. So you have to start early, of course. So why starting early? It's obvious because, you know, in my case, it was obvious. I'm not a guy that likes to start very early preparing presentations, but this time I did not facilitate it and started right away preparing it just after receiving the notice that I've passed to the second phase. So you need to start early because squeezing 5 years project in 10 minutes presentations can be absolutely overwhelming if you do not have the discipline and the resilience to really start again from scratch with minimum intervals of pause if there is something that you don't like in your presentation. So you must be self-disciplined, as I said, to the point you must stop doing everything else related to science. This was my case. Maybe you don't need it. Maybe you are very efficient. So in my case, I had to stop to doing participating in other projects because they were taking a lot of my time. So if you really want to go with fire and fury, okay. In case you failed and have not been awarded with the grant, you do not want to regret about you know, the time you could have gained if you had left behind some other tasks. So the second point, you must build a sound narrative. Okay, this takes a lot of time. This, at least in my case, was really a challenge. So you need to plan your approach and mount a story that engages meaningfully the evaluators from start to end. For me, taking an holistic approach was of paramount importance to understand, you know, all dimensions of your problem, dimensions and different angles, you know, of the problem. For example, understanding my problem from the perspective of a material scientist, chemist, perspective of a spectroscopist, and also computational modeler. This was definitely one of the most time-consuming steps. But the gains are really enormous because I was able at the end to build the narrative in a more fluid way because I took this holistic approach, as I was able to better interlink different disciplines as well. So in addition, you may also face a very heterogeneous evaluators panel. And this holistic approach gives you more confidence to respond to their questions as well. It is also beneficial to strategically change the tempo and tone of your speech during the talk whenever you want to emphasize a bold idea or something that you may think it is a strong point in your approach. I've also trained these aspects to be well prepared. It was not easy for me because I never did it. In fact, this will for sure mitigate evaluators' fatigue as well. For instance, just to give you a pragmatic example, let's say you are in a given slide and you want to stress that a given step in your project is new or it comprises a key challenge to attain certain goals, for example. Then you can profit and explain that this step in the project will greatly benefit from your background, or say that you are the only person that has already done preliminary studies in that field, for example. Being able to identify the right timing to sell yourself is fundamental. This will immediately convey to the evaluators a feeling of credibility, and this leads me to the next point, which I call it trustworthiness, value, and relevance. What do I mean with this? I want to say that I performed the critical appraisal of my proposal ideas as much as I could, employing critical thinking, of course, trying many times to be my own devil's advocate, trying to challenge myself, trying to ask my wife if she doesn't understand something, my colleague on the side door, and trying to deny that I thought that what I thought were my most solid ideas. Try to deny them somehow, even if it doesn't make sense, just to be sure I was bulletproof. If you believe and you show evidence that you are bulletproof, as I said, as your narrative flows, of course, then you become trustable, and your approach gains more value and relevance. So, okay. So, sorry, this is not good. Yeah. Now we go to the public stage. So this is time, for you to test your ideas, test your presentation with others. So exaggerating a little bit, of course, you must desire to get grilled by another peer researcher. Receiving only good things and positive feedback may make you feel great, maybe, about your presentation, but will definitely not help you to improve anything. So be concerned if nobody criticizes you, okay? I remember to have invited as much researchers as I could from different backgrounds to obtain a wide range of unbiased opinions from researchers of different ages, junior, senior, professors, and so on. I presented ideas also to engineers, industrials, physicists, people from environmentalists. Was really interesting to have industrialists because I had some, CO2 capture. There's a lot of technologies, a lot of people interested on these capture technologies from engineering side. So I was feeling that my knowledge was weak on that aspect. So I really pushed hard to learn about it. And this allows to reshape different aspects, not only about my presentation, but also to improve language skills and expressions used to make it sound clear, for example, which I have some difficulty to speak clearly. My diction is not the best in the world. So I'm convinced that I'm not the best presenter in the world, but I learned a lot in this process, of course. I was also asking volunteers to assist to my speech, and so they can check my gestural language, posture, and so on. So this, yeah. For me at times it was really difficult to avoid adding too many details in my presentation that my brain, processed as essential information. I have an analytical mind, and I naturally tend to go into fine details, which is a mistake. Because after presenting my talk to others, so it was very clear to some of them at least, that I was entering far too much into unnecessary details that could potentially distract, you know, from the essential message and destroy my narrative because too many over explanations will force me to accelerate the pace, you know, and to fit my speech in these 10 minutes, and this will deteriorate the clarity of my message and ultimately destroy my story. So once you get satisfied with your performance during presentations, you can raise a little bit the bar, and this leads me to the next step, the interview day. I mean, so I'm going to skip this waiting room 666, you know, which is very exciting, but we can speak later about that if you're interested. So I'm going to go to the second point, the presentation itself. Maybe before going to the presentation, sorry, I forgot to go into talking something about mocking interviews. Training your presentation conditions close to realistic, you know, environments was also fundamental, of course. So that's, I mean, if you can get evaluators from other fields than yours, you know, if your research plan is interdisciplinary, so it's good to have, you know, experts from the different disciplines, and this will be great to test you, and you will be able to bring to the fore your ability to formulate answers, implying a connection of concepts from different disciplines, which is really important. In mock interviews, you'll be able to train all kinds of answers, including the ones related to the justifications of the budget, human resources, and things like that. So overtraining your presentation, this is also, I mean, after training too much, you risk entering in a what I call a robot mode, where you have memorized everything without having to look at the slides. I try to avoid at all costs this. And I stopped training 15 days before the real interview, I guess, or something like that. I did not want to sound robotic because this is not engaging for the evaluators. Keeping a small degree of improvisation was beneficial to me, as you can show you are thinking while you are presenting. So once I'm happy with my presentation, I may have trained it about probably maybe 15 times or 18 times. So just to give you a number, let's say. So finally, the interview day. The presentation, you know, you have about, I don't remember, but maybe Nunu and Beatriz can correct me, it's about 18 or 20 evaluators that are facing you, okay? Looking at you, and this is time to unleash everything you learned and trained for during the preparation step, which is about 90%. And there's not much you can do, you know, in 10 minutes, you just have to prepare it and that's it, you know. I should emphasize that you should never go beyond 10 minutes at all means. Don't do it. Ending out of time is one of the worst mistakes because you are informed several times before the interview that you should not go beyond 10 minutes, blah, blah, blah. I remember that I did my presentation in exactly 9 minutes, I think 59. At the end of my talk, the president of the panel felicitated me for being on time, sharp on time, and the presentation ended in a very positive tone, just before the Q&A session. I can give you a cook recipe, probably following exactly my presentation. The presentation I structured the following.
We will have still a few minutes.
Okay.
We are a bit over time. Thanks.
Okay, so I can hand, maybe if you want, I can hand just by saying that the questions is the real test. So you cannot predict the nature of the questions that will be made. The way you build your presentation story is done with strategy. If done with strategy, is a huge help to intentionally direct the evaluator's attention to certain questions that may favor you, for example. So in your presentation, you should try to not emphasize topics that you may struggle to debate, of course. Try to not help them to put you in danger. And just maybe the last point, there was no cliche questions, like where you'll be in 5 years from now, just very technical questions about my research plan, things like that. The questions were totally related to some criticisms and doubts about the plan, the way I will implement the plan. If you are well prepared, you should know any facets of the different weaknesses of your own project and be prepared to announce contingency plans. So I heard some people saying that high risk, high gain, doesn't make much sense in my head, but high risk project doesn't mean that you can successfully implement it. But if you have a nice contingency plan that can mitigate the fact that you don't implement very well your high risk idea, you will be satisfied as well. So I could continue forever, but I should stop now. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Luis. Sorry for interrupting, but we have to be on time with our agenda, and we have just some minutes more for one question to all of you, and then to go for the questions from the audience. So I would like to ask to all the panelists of this session if they want to share some further suggestion or tips to the more than around 400 audience attendees that we had today. So who wants to start?
I can speak. Well, I don't know if it is only for this panel or everyone, but I suppose that it's for everyone. The main message is that it should prepare ahead of time, as you heard all the grantees already, and you have to be confident in yourself and confident on your idea. You have to be sure that you have a very innovative idea, and just think strategically and think and plan well ahead of time and get ready and prepared. So looking at all the documents issued by the ERC, the work program, the guide for applicants, explore the ERC website and reach out to ERC grantees that you may know or within your networks, and get for your proposal, start writing well in advance, very well in advance, and then get many people to review your proposal. The more reviews you've got, the better it will look, and that requires time, of course. And just don't be shy and be bold, because ERC also, as already has been mentioned here, is very important to very well market yourself. So it's aggressive marketing in the track record. There is no place for modesty. Of course, that has to be always based on facts and on reality. You cannot make up things, but you have to always present yourself in the best manner possible, of not modestly. So modesty is not important for writing an application, but of course you have to be realistic.
Thanks, Natalia. So Luis, I see that you probably want to say something.
Yeah, I just following what Natalia said, I think it's, I remember an episode, that the questions from me were totally related, as I said, to my research plan. And you should be ready to reject some provocations, because clearly there was one or two evaluators that one of them stand up and said, look, I don't believe on that. I don't remember exactly how it was, but it was a provocative, insinuation that was trained by the evaluation panel. And if you do not agree with what you believe to be false affirmations, you should really, readily negate them and explain why. This will show them your tenacity, allowing therefore to measure your level of confidence as well. So this is very important. It happened to me with 2 evaluators. So that's it.
Thanks, Luis.
Yeah, may I?
Sure.
I would like to add, just especially for the people who is willing to apply for the starting grant, that they come, as you have 5 years from 2 to 7 after your PhD, that if you have already a good idea, do not wait until the last year waiting to have a very competitive CV. So do not be afraid, and try to be also intelligent or strategic. And also maybe you can try to apply willing to have a second chance. And yeah, my message is that don't be afraid about the feedback and the evaluation, because it's a process that you can learn a lot from it. So I think anyway, it's a great experience. And if you still have time, you can learn, and to have a second chance is always very precious. Yeah.
Thanks, Beatriz. Any further suggestion from Nuno and Pedro? Sorry, you're muted, Nuno.
No, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I think you can proceed. I think they pretty much addressed the questions, and I think.
And you shared very interesting information before.
What?
Sorry, now we can move to the question from the audience then. The first question will go to, we have two questions from Beatriz, actually. One from Lorena Digues and another from Marta Martín de Rey. So the first one is, can you please share a bit of how your CV was at the time of the application, number of years, postdoc, number of publication, age index, etc.
Okay, so yeah, I have to say that I applied twice to the starting grant. The first time I didn't get it, of course. And from this last time, it was in my last year. I already, I could apply this year in particular because I have a kid. Actually now two, but in that moment I have one. And yeah, I used this like 7 months from my extra 18 months that you got from having a kid. Regarding my CV, I finished my PhD in 2012 in March. So in the moment of my last application, I got like 7 years and a half of experience. Currently, I'm having my group here in Santiago. So yeah, I would say that I was not working as a postdoctoral researcher anymore for the time of my application. And regarding my publications, I got, I have, I guess, a good number of publications, around 70 publications. And at the time of the application, and most of them, many of them are very high very high peer review journals like ACS Nano, Chemistry of Materials, Nature Communication, JACS, Agevante, and so on. And X-index around 28, I think, when I applied, something like that. But I don't think, as has been already explained, that ERC is just about metrics and numbers. I don't think so. I don't believe it, actually. So I think if you have a sound CV track record and a good experience, and you can demonstrate that you have been independent and you have led for nice results in your field and your idea is good, and you are able to prove it in your proposal, I think you should have a good feedback from the reviewers. I don't think it's only based on numbers and that's all. Yeah.
And the second question is, I think you already covered, but maybe you want to add something. So regarding your experience in preparing the starting grant, both the written proposal and also the interview, which tips are essential, in your opinion, to have a successful ERC?
Yeah, this year, as we have this outreach with the COVID, it was not, there was not interview phase for the starting. I know for the consolidator it was, but not for the starting grant this year. So I cannot give valuable tips from the interview. I guess Luis already has given a very nice presentation about that. Regarding how to prepare the proposal, I think the most important thing is just to be clear. in what are your ideas. So don't be shy and just be clear. So leave everything clear, methodology, objectives, and also your CV, your contributions, your experience, and everything. So don't be afraid. And the most important thing is that everything is fitting like a puzzle. So, and you are not leaving anything out. Also, it's very important to work in the contingency plans, as Luis already said. So I think everything should fit. So you need to spend time reading and checking that you are not leaving something out of your control. And I think that's the most important thing. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. So we have another question that maybe can be answered by the National Contact Points, because this question is from Hugo Vicente Miranda. Is mentioning about what is meant with mobility in the sense of going abroad or moving inside the institution in your own country. If a CV is solid and if publications are seminal, why a candidate might be negatively scored if it does not have international mobility? So I don't know if Stefania or Rui.
Yeah, I was the first to put the camera. Okay, Laura, you can help me on this one as well. But I guess the mobility factor is that you don't spend your whole career in the same institution under the same research group doing the same work. I think it's the kind of also, but it's not limited to that. It does not imply that you need to move abroad or to move outside of your country, but at least to have contact with another reality other than your country, I think, or your research group. So I think this is more in terms of what is meant for mobility. It doesn't mean that it has to be long-term, but anyways, I believe that we all work in an international environment, and so this is not different from the ERC. But I think Laura or Stefania, Natalia can comment on this.
Yes, my experience is that ERC is waiting for international recognition. So maybe you have not moved from your institution. For example, I know an advanced grant that the whole career is based just in one institution here in Spain, but he is international recognized in his field. So he can prove these mobilities, not mobilities, about international recognition from your research community.
Yeah, you could have collaborate in other projects, European projects, have the relationship with other colleagues abroad, as Stefania said, and maybe you have not moved from your institution, but that's the idea, is to be, we are in Europe, so we have to be a little bit in an international way. Either you haven't moved to another institution, but you collaborate, you work, you are in your field, you are well known. That's more the idea.
And sometimes the mobility is linked with the independency of the principal investigator. In starting grant, for example, it's important to prove this independence, and sometimes the investigator can prove it by another postdocs that have been done in another institution abroad. So it's both international recognition and a proof of independence for the starters.
If I may compliment Stefania, it was exactly my point, is that when you talk about an advanced grant in the example you showed is perfect on that sense, that you're talking about somebody that has already an established career and has spent, independently of having spent their time or not in the same institution throughout the career. But at the starting level, then especially nowadays, and like Lara also mentioned, we are in an European context. We're no longer isolated in our own institutions. So that should be reflected in your CV. And if mobility can be reflected in collaborations in your papers, in short-term mobility during your early stages of your career. So I think that would be the two sides of the coin. Yeah.
We have one question for Luis. So thanks for the advices, but there is a very fine balance between being bulletproof and trustworthy, but not appear arrogant. How did you transmit it? Did you get a lot of generic questions, or was it all on the details of the method and literature?
Yeah. Yeah, you know, as I told you, there was no cliche questions. I spent some time preparing, even during the flight, you know, these silly questions that you see in the internet. Just don't waste time on that. I think at least my panel, they don't go into these questions, you know. But of course, in the safe side, you should train them as well. We never know what's going to happen. But the questions, basically, I received about 10 questions from, and these guys in the panel, they were reading, you know, a sheet of paper about external reviewers to the panel, you know, really precise questions, detailed questions, you know. And so, of course, you know, everything you should know about, you have to assume it, you know, and before going to interview, there is nothing that can make you collapse because you know all types, you know, all dimensions of your problem, okay? If you prepare you well, you even like that this happens because it gives you an opportunity to shine. There is nothing worse than having general questions, not focused questions, because you have studied a lot for your proposal. So you want to get an opportunity to shine because in 10 minutes, you only have one slide to talk about yourself, yeah, and things like that. So if the panel makes questions where you can see a path to shine even more, I mean, just profit it. That's the way I see it, you know. So don't be scared. I mean, about being rude. You raised that question about you are afraid to be rude or something. Your answers. You're not rude. I mean, if the evaluator is, you know, is raising a question or is affirming something that you deeply believe is not true, you just say it's not true. You know, you have to be. I mean, you have to show your own personality without being aggressive, of course. You know. Use your common sense and everything will be fine. You know, they like to test you. They like to see you're a human being, let's say. If you're just too robotic or just like a machine, you know, they know you are an emotional being. So just don't cry, okay? But try to be, you know, try to pull your emotions out when necessary. And if you can also, if you have the opportunity to use some sense of humor, it might be also interesting, you know, in an intelligent way. Please don't do it on purpose. It's just sometimes it fits well. I think I replied maybe more or less to what you want.
Okay, thank you. So we still have some questions, but unfortunately we are not able to go through all of them due to the time limit we have. We apologize with the people that posted their question in our question and answer box, and we invite them to keep this question in mind and address us by email. You can reach us out at INL or also I believe the National Contact Points, and as well the ERC grants holders show their availability in sharing some tips to you further this session. So we can close the session. I give my word back to George Fiennes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much to everyone who attended this full morning of conference. We were an average of 350 people connected around what it takes to get an ERC grant. We hope that you leave this session with your doubts addressed, or at least with better questions that you must consider from now on. We thank to all the attendees and above all to the invitees who enriched this session with your clarifications and your invaluable advice on how to navigate the path that leads to the opportunities embodied by the several ERC grants. We are pretty sure that you got closer to the objective after this session. And remember, INL is here for you. Take care, stay safe, and we wish you the best for your endeavors. Thank you.